Hey, welcome to Team Meeting. This is a podcast for current and former student athletes to talk about your value. I believe and know from the other side of the desk as a professor that you are more valuable beyond sports because of sports. And so let's have a team meeting. And today it is my great pleasure to introduce the famous and very wise Robert Truitt. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, how you doing, Professor Rob?
Good. I'm good. Okay, so Robert played football, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in some of our conversations, we talked about what it was like after eligibility, and some of the things that he watches now or sees now as a student athlete that didn't go pro. So, Robert, talk to me about what it feels like to look at some other podcasts or videos of former pro athletes or what do you kind of listen to?
I listen to a lot of different, LeVar Burton podcasts sometimes, like he still reads. But, sometimes like I steer clear of the sports centers for the most parts. A lot of athletes now are getting into podcasts like I think what is it? Steve, I Am Athlete, Pivot. I watch them every once in a while, but sometimes I just don't feel like they relate to the everyday hardworking person who's not in the professional sports world. So I try to have my hands in people who try to solve real problems or think about things that we never think about, and I keep my interest a little open just because it's a lot of problems and there's a lot of solutions to them. And so sometimes I just don't feel like sports is always progressive. I think sometimes they're retrospective.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Yeah. So when we because I think as athletes, you all are a great group of people that understand how to set a goal, get back up, and kind of this goal of leading others into this belongingness that you had as a team that maybe other people didn't experience, miss, or after sports is over, there's not this belongingness that they really miss, that they really relied on the belongingness. And so, so can you tell me about some of your transitions after, like, what was your first job after you graduated and eligibility, as you saw eligibility ending?
Okay, so I guess after my last season, I wanted to work for Coca-Cola. My major in school was marketing, and so I was thinking Coca-Cola is the pinnacle of what every marketer wants to do: go behind a big brand, push it. And so I worked at the World of Coke Fresh, like while I was still in school, but after my last season. And then after I graduated, I went to work for a fairly well-known convenience store in the Southeast. And I started off as a relief overnight manager, third shift manager, moved up to an assistant manager, went to corporate for a while, then went back into the stores. And then from then on, just touching into a lot of different areas. So a little bit of sales, a little bit of public sector work. And now I'm currently in project management and in media and being technical. That's trying to increase my skills. So that's where I am right now.
So you played football at Georgia State. You're a Division I student athlete, which is not easy. Is there something you could tell the Robert Truitt of as a younger student athlete, either in high school or in college, something that you wish you'd have known then?
Aside from getting a crypto coin or a Bitcoin.
There you go. There you go.
I think maybe, that's a good question. And when we've talked, but every time you mention this, it's still difficult because there are so many things that I probably would have told myself to do. Pick harder classes,
Oh,
run those extra sprints, put more weights on in the weight room, listen to your coaches, listen to your professors, listen to the training staff, the people who help keep you healthy throughout the season, because they know what they're talking about. And so just briefly, like you're in a bubble. This is how I consider college, and especially being a college athlete. You're in a giant bubble. You're shielded, you're protected, but everything is concentrated within that bubble. And so there are people, there's a system around you, even if it is for a much bigger picture. It's there to help support you. And so you really want to take advantage of those opportunities as much as possible. Whether you go pro, they're there to help you. And even if you don't go pro, whether it's by choice or that's just not your purpose, still take advantage of many of those opportunities.
is there an opportunity you wish you would have taken advantage of? And then the second part of that question is there a way to get through to some of these younger athletes?
The answer is yes and no. Let me answer the second question first. When you're 17, 18, 19, 20, you're just getting your real first taste of freedom, responsibility, and maybe a tad bit of accountability. So you it's hard to reach someone when they got their headphones on, and they see just a finish line and going towards a finish line. So sometimes it's hard to reach them. But I think the most important thing that you can do as someone who may be supporting them, whether like I said, you're a leader, you're in that support system, is to be honest with them, is
Okay.
to not scare them,
Yeah,
with fear talk, but then
right.
give them a real sense of like, well, how are you going to solve a problem in the world? And I do believe that pro athletes solve problems, because they give motivation, they inspire, they go back to their communities, and they provide opportunities for people in their communities who may not be able to see, outside of their current environments. And so, and then once you get into new bubbles, you find that there's other people who have problems and you help them solve those problems. So I would tell someone, regardless of what their sport is, regardless of what their career path, what they intend their career path to be, and just even where they are, be solution oriented. Look for a problem, don't complain about it, but be proactive in how you can solve that problem.
Since you've graduated, have you worked with other student athletes in your other jobs? And do you find sort of a more than like a kindred kind of situation, but do you find that they are more adept at solving problems, finding and setting a goal, that sort of thing?
Yes. And the weird thing is, like, I don't know, because sometimes if someone doesn't go pro or didn't have that opportunity, they don't really talk too much about their college athletic experience, because
Oh, really?
it's weird, because it's almost like you seem like you're a failure, but the truth of the matter is you're not. You're a professional in a whole nother world. And
Yes.
so sometimes they're and I'm not gonna say sometimes, it could be almost all the times, it could be often, it could be always. They are normally very, very successful in their roles and their jobs, because you've taken away, for one, they're, like you said, they're goal oriented. We're
Yeah.
conditioned to do or not do.
Right.
It's either you meet the objectives or you don't meet the objectives. And if you're not meeting the objectives, what are you doing to at least improve yourself? So regardless, like I said, of anyone's skill level of wherever they are working, I think we have it kind of conditioned in our brain that we have to be competitive, and
Right.
competition makes the environment a little bit sharper. So I would say I probably met a lot of college athletes that I didn't know that played, and they sharpen my iron. They keep the fire hot, and in my experience, I probably would say that I do the same. I try to do the same, for the betterment of solving problems.
And that's I'm not sure how we're going to try and do this, but we're going to take off this stigma that going from athletics to society without going to the pros is a great calling, like incredible calling, because I think y'all are the leaders of our country because you can pick other people up. You're used to being part of a team. You can demonstrate a team. And so we're going to work on that. Okay. This is more of a movement than a podcast. Okay. We're getting together. So. We're doing this thing. So if you look back on practice, what was the one or two things that you thought you were really good at, or you look forward to in practice, or you didn't want to mess up, or something, and not the actual drills, but what are the things that as you look back, you kind of, after practice, you realized you did something well? Was it the strategy? Was it the planning? What was it that really, because I think there's a big difference between games and practice. And we'll get to the games after this, but
okay. Practice is daunting. For me, it was daunting. You can ask somebody else, they say they love practice. Those are weird guys to me. I hated practice. I hated conditioning, every moment of it. And so I think the success was I came out of practice and I didn't quit. I didn't leave the field early. I brought the best attitude that I could, even when I know I was not feeling a player, a coach, a situation, decisions that were made. I tried my best to not bring an attitude that would be cancerous to my teammates, because I didn't want to dim the light on what they had intended. This one guy, he's all fire, and who am I, just because I'm in my feelings, in practice today, to like start kind of bringing everybody down, and that gets people hurt. Man, that's what I so
maybe really in your sport more than some of the others.
I mean, in golf too.
Yeah.
In golf too, because I'll say this: like I didn't play or practice seriously, but getting hit with the golf club, I got hit with the golf club when I was 10 years old in the eye, and it hurts really bad. So every sport has an element of danger.
There is, and then, there's okay. So if in your career, and as you're going and you're doing very well, what are some of the leadership skills that you take from what you did in sports to every day, or to your company, or your, or maybe let me ask it this way. Every Saturday you had an evaluation. You did in every practice, but let's say it was every Saturday for games, or Thursday night or Friday night or whatever it was. But once a week you had a game during the season, which was a pretty good evaluation. What is the difference between that weekly evaluation and win or lose, and what you have in industry right now, or your career?
Every day is game day in my current career, in my current role, current path right now, as opposed to waiting every week to prepare for a game. So every night I try my best to prepare myself, so that, because I realize that the people are dependent on me, regardless of what that role may be or what that position is. Someone is dependent on me to do my job. So it's important that I prepare myself, so I don't get called out. The worst thing in practice and in games is to be called out, because there's 9 times out of 10 a camera out there, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. And so you in real world, you may be able to get by a couple of days, maybe a week, maybe even a few years, but eventually what you've done, the results will eventually show. And so you can't hide. So if you go into, every single day with this is game day, someone's dependent on me, I got to do my job, without being too hard on yourself, you're going to at least put yourself in a position where I can at least hold myself accountable and then address the issues that, may or may not come. So it's just preparation. Preparation is the biggest one.
Do you think that the discipline without really a reward that you have through sports helps every day?
Oh, yes. These are some tough questions.
Sorry. Aren't you? Yes, and he passed all my classes, got A's. He was, but I have tough questions.
Well, you can't plant a tree today and expect to eat the fruit the same day you plant it, and so it helps to kind of know that your reward may not come in your lifetime.
Right.
That's something recently, probably within the last maybe 8 years, that I've been thinking on, and just you may never see Edgar Allan Poe. He never really got to see how influential he was to the English and language arts, but he's one of the most revered poets of all time, and he'll never know that. But
right.
Had he not put his work out there on the line, no one would know. And so I think we have to get out of looking for a reward, regardless of when it will come, immediately, 5 years, 10 years before we retire. You may never get a reward, but that doesn't mean that the work still doesn't need to be done, because the work, it goes somewhere. Like, you're making deposits.
Right.
And eventually everything adds up.
Yep. Good or bad, it adds up. Kind of like seed, plant, harvest. What did you enjoy most about being in sports?
Everything. Looking back, I mean, I miss it all. Like, even aside from the gassers, aside from waking up crazy early in the morning, just the ability to be around people who wanted better for themselves. Not necessarily,
Nice.
We had different goals, but we had a commonality.
Mm-hmm.
And so being around that spirit, that energy,
right.
It's enriching, it's motivating. And sometimes you take it for granted until you're outside of that environment, or you're not around that same energy. So I would probably say that's the most rewarding part. It's like playing basketball.
Right.
Sometimes you play pickup basketball in the gym. You're not playing with Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant, but the guy that works at the plant down the street, he's giving his all on the court, and he makes the game exciting because he's bringing his best. He's bringing good energy. He's playing good team ball. And so that in itself, to me, I think it's a reward.
Okay. So what was you were on the first Georgia State football team, and you built it. You were one of the Curry boys, right?
Yeah. One of the
Bill
guys.
Curry that we all love. What was your favorite game?
I'm going to have to say the first game. Second game will probably be the Alabama game, all in the first season. First college game. That's probably the number one reason. First game for Georgia State as a school. And then being able to play in the Dome. I'm from the Metro Atlanta area. And so in high school in Georgia, I would say playing in the Georgia Dome was a bit of it was a big deal. If you get to the playoffs, you get to play in the Dome. That was a big deal. And so playing our first game in the Georgia Dome after a season before of just fighting and playing each other and playing nobody. Oh, finally we can play somebody else. So I would say that's still my favorite game.
That was quite a lift you all did from no locker rooms to getting on a bus and because I taught there, but I will say I teach event management, and so I taught inside the Georgia Dome a lot of the time. And that first game, there were the management at the Dome found me in the stadium and said, this is the loudest the Dome had ever been, including concerts. And to see the alums crying when the band came out, the flags came out, and all, it was the most wheelchairs I'd ever seen at any game, because all these alums who forever had their kids go to Georgia or Georgia Tech, and they're fans of Georgia, because in the South, you better be a football fan, you better pick a side, stay there. Okay, yeah. So they had their entire families with them. It was like, I cannot tell you how many people were there, and I don't think there'd ever been that many people in wheelchairs, but it was all these alums, they were coming. And the minute the band came out, they were in tears. I was just, it was the coolest thing, because I think football is, I think we forget about sports as ancillary involvement, which can be marching bands, pep bands, flags, twirling, all the halftime stuff, the timeout stuff, the tailgating, all that creates a belongingness outside of just the sports. I'm not sure what you all model as belongingness as a team actually extends into the stands and before and after, but I'm not certain as you're a student athlete, you understand that, because there's a little bit of chaos going on in your life with class and all the extra stuff and practice, and and then sometimes you eat, and sleep, and that every once in a while, and that sort of
once in a while.
Well,
you eat a lot,
and
you might get some sleep
every once in a while, every once in a while. If you could tell an athletic department how to help you prepare after eligibility, what would you tell them?
Oh, it starts really at the very first conversation. We're in a day and age where information is so readily available that you don't have to filter the information. 9 times out of 10, people have an idea of what they want to do and where they want to go, just because, once again, like, social media is there. If I want to learn something, I can learn how to build a house on YouTube. So it's I think a lot of the ball has been put into the hands of the people, and so it's the athletic department can ask, well, how can I support you? What are some ideas that you have? Because then from that point they can say, well, these are some of the systems, these are some of the filters that we have to help support you. If I went in and I like I said, I'm a marketing major. That was my major, was marketing. I wanted to make commercials. So had I known that, hey, Robert, connect with, yes, play football, of course, but then these are some departments that you can work with in the off season to just, keep those skills sharp. It will keep me more engaged, not only with the university, but I would also feel a little bit more appreciation to the program, because I would feel as a person, as a player who is, putting my body, putting my talents and my skills for the university's benefit, that they will also help support me as well by pursuing something that I believe will make me whole. So to me, it's a conversation about how can we make each other whole. We want you because you're a player, you did well at the high school level. We believe that you can contribute to our program at the collegiate level. But while you're here, what are some things that we can do? Because that keeps players from wanting to go somewhere else. You have better morale. And then, after, regardless of what happens after your eligibility, you have an appreciation for the school that you come from, because you felt the support from the beginning to the end.
Do you keep in touch with any of your former teammates?
A good bit of them. I do. Sometimes some of them still hold flag football games, and we try to meet there and see if we still got it.
awesome.
sometimes we try to just stay in each other's ears and give each other tools that are relevant to what we're working on right now. So I don't really have much of a choice. We built such a strong bond from the beginning that we can maintain healthy relationships even now.
That's the best part, is the belongingness. If you could describe to somebody who didn't play college sports, what a day in the life of a college student athlete, what is that like? I mean, do you have a lot of free time?
It's not yours. If you do have free time, it's fleeting. It's very fleeting. Well, for at Georgia State, we would get up in the mornings about 5:30. Hopefully get dressed, be in the weight room. If some people may already be lifting weights, but you're getting ready for film. Then after film, you're getting ready to get on the bus and go to practice. And then after practice, some people had classes like I did right after practice. And so who knows, you might get a chance to get something to eat, you might not.
Right.
But you're pretty much on a schedule. And it's you hopefully you appreciate the free time that you do get. And so you want to make your free time as intentional as possible. But you don't really have much of your own time.
Right. So after eligibility, going from a schedule like that to graduating and moving across campus or whatever it is, how did that kind of affect you?
It's an adjustment. It was definitely an adjustment. From the high school level where, you just have few obligations, to a college level to where you're held accountable for somebody else if they're not where they're supposed to be. It kind of makes you aware, you get your antennas up a little bit, because you have a responsibility of not just making sure that you're in the right place doing the right thing, but you're doing it on behalf of the program as well. And so quickly, for a college athlete, you become legally an adult. And so legally as an adult, you're held responsible for the good and the bad things that adults are responsible for. So I do see it as sometimes necessary to be on that schedule and to be obligated to someone else's time. But at the same time, once again, that conversation, I think just programs will be more successful when they have a conversation with humans, with real people. Because sometimes people, they don't know they don't know what they're going through. I can say now what I was going through, but then I couldn't really tell you what I was going through. It felt lonely at times, even though I had teammates, they couldn't always identify with what I had going on, and they had their own situations that they were dealing with too. And so sometimes just having that good leader in your ear, there are coaches, there are leaders, there are admins, there are people out there who listen, but a safe space would be ideal in today's world for college athletes, to just go and talk and release and not feel obligated, because that's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot to put those adult responsibilities on someone who just became an adult.
That's what I saw as a professor on the other side of the desk. And after eligibility, everyone ended up in my office. Not everybody, but I had a lot of student athletes in class because I taught very tactily, so that you could set a goal, move through it, actually demonstrate what you learned. And I couldn't really believe that they had all of this confidence on the field. And now all of a sudden I thought, oh, they'll just take that off the field, and on they went. And all of a sudden I was like, there's a pattern here. So I built a quiz to help student athletes because actually I wanted to go home at night. But it just kept happening and happening. And that was the reason for this podcast and kind of a program, is to help student athletes. But this has been really excellent. I mean, your questions, I'm going to have you back. So like, it's going to be
I would love to be
every
back.
couple weeks with Robert Truitt and at a whole nother level, because I didn't know we are going to go with Edgar Allan Poe. So I'll have to catch up with that from now on. But I appreciate your time. We're going to do this again. Yeah. And because I want everyone to get better.
And Professor Rob, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have to say this genuinely from my heart. Out of all the classes and courses I've taken, just in my educational career, yours is definitely one of the top two, if not the first one, that really helped me prepare me for the real world. I felt like I had something to discuss. I had something, at least a plan. Like, we're given plays as athletes, but a plan is totally different. Something concrete, something I can check off a list, something that I can visualize, something that I can start from nothing and then build it out piece by piece. That was extremely helpful to at least get me into the real world. So I felt like I didn't have that confidence until I took your class. I felt very prepared going into interviews. Wow. I felt prepared being able to be a manager. I felt prepared even outside of just, my quote unquote working career. Any extracurricular activities that I had going on outside of my career, I applied what you taught us in your classes, and I believe that's what helped me to be successful. And I can touch on that another time, but
that's a little overwhelming for me, and that wasn't really the goal. But no, that was the goal of the class. It wasn't the goal of the interview. But we can go over that some other time. But you are awesome. I am grateful to know you, and I have every confidence in you. But okay, this is Robert Truitt and Dr. Debbie Robb. And until next time, we'll have another team meeting. Thanks, everybody.